Hey there guys, hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to be checking out the Camplifier S2, which is a brand new product from those guys over at KPA Solutions. So for anyone who's seen any of my other Camplifier videos, you should be fairly familiar with this by now. The Camplifier S2 is essentially a power amp unit that's designed to run in the back of the Kemper Profiling Amp. So it'll fit right into the cavity at the back, and because the Kemper is basically a line level guitar preamp, it needs something like this to amplify the signal so that you can plug the Kemper straight into a guitar speaker rather than going straight into front of house or into a mixing console. So how's this different to the other Camplifier products? Well, this is a twin channel power amp, and it's basically the big brother to the Camplifier Studio that I showed you earlier this year. So it delivers up to 2 times 25 watts. And as you can see, we've got 2 inputs and 2 outputs here, and both of those inputs and outputs are 1/4-inch jacks. So just use your regular 1/4-inch jack cables to go out from the Kemper into this, and then your usual speaker cables to go from the red outputs into your speaker cabinets. So the cool things with this then, it's completely silent. There's no fan, so you don't get any humming noises, nothing at all, totally silent, which is really important, you know, if you're in a studio environment where you've got lots of condenser mics and so on, and you just need complete silence for the recording. Other than that, you can also plug just into the top input here, and it will then route a mono output to both of these outputs here. So if you want to drive 2 cabinets at the same time, but you don't necessarily have a stereo input, you can give it a mono input and it will send both of those mono inputs, a copied version to both of the outputs. So for me then, I thought I could kind of talk you through how this is going to be used and how this differs to anything else in my setup. You might just be able to see up in the background my regular Camplifier 290 sitting up on the chest there. And the 290 is a much more powerful power amp, whereas this is much more compact and it has different applications. So for me, I'm going to be using the Camplifier S2 mainly for kind of home use, for teaching, for recording, for smaller rehearsals with a smaller ensemble, and maybe even for kind of smaller gigs, like a coffee shop gig or a lounge gig, something like that, but not for kind of a bigger concert venue or a heavier rock band or something like that. Whereas the 290 is going to be part of my setup for kind of live gigs, bigger gigs where I need to drive a bigger amplifier to produce higher volumes. And I'm going to be using this running into 2 cabs. So my main setup, I use one of the Kemper 112 Plus cabs from the guys at KPA Solutions, which is essentially a flat response guitar cabinet designed to work with the Kemper Profiling Amp. So I use one of those from one of the outputs. And I also use a regular guitar cabinet made by the guys at Weinbrock Amplification, which is a 4x10 cabinet. So I'm going to be using those in stereo. And that's really cool for home use, for teaching, for gigging, because I can get all my stereo panning delays, anything else that comes out of the Kemper in stereo, I can get that actually in stereo coming out of 2 cabs at once. So that's the product. What I thought we could do is have a quick look at how to install it inside of the Kemper. Really easy to do. I'll show you the process. It will take literally minutes. If you want any more information, head over to KPA Solutions website, and I'm sure you'll find everything you need there. Alright, so let's check out the process for installing the Camplifier S2 into the Kemper. It's really easy to do. As you can see, I've flipped my Kemper onto its front here. It won't do it any harm, just be a little bit careful. And first thing we need to do is remove these 8 screws which are spread around the outside of the cavity in the back. One thing to be aware of, these screws are hex screws, so they're not ordinary kind of Phillips head screws, so you'll need a tool something like this to remove them. So you can see I've got this JCB multi-tool that includes a few sizes of this. And you'll see hex key screws on various different kind of electronic appliances, sometimes inside of a car to close up the trim. Basically manufacturers like to use those when they want to kind of obfuscate the insides of the device, because the hex screws, the tool is a little bit less common. But you can get hold of them in any hardware store, not difficult to find. So once you've taken them out, we're going to take the Camplifier S2 and place it in the cavity up in the top right hand corner, lining up the holes with the holes where the screws go. And I'm going to take the screws that are supplied with the Camplifier. So these are just regular Phillips head screws. We don't need a hex key for these. And I'm just going to place them in the holes lining up with the Kemper underneath. I'm going to use my Bosch cordless drill, well, it's actually a cordless screwdriver, just to make this a little bit easier. There's one. There's two. Doesn't need to be a cordless screwdriver, could just be a regular screwdriver. Put all four in, I'll just do the two for now. And all we need to do now is connect up our cables and then we're ready to go. So I'm going to take a very short patch lead just to keep this neat and tidy. I'm going to plug the input of the Camplifier to the output of the Kemper. So I can either use the monitor output or the direct output. Now what I'm going to do is take my speaker cable, which is connected up to my cabinet at the other end, and plug it into one of the outputs. So you need to make sure to use speaker cables, not instrument cables for this. And the last thing to do is take my power adapter, which is supplied with the Camplifier, and plug it into the power output, which is on the side of the Camplifier, just inside of the cavity here. So there, we're all done, all ready to go, and you've still got a little bit of space left in the cavity for storing cables and plectrums and whatever else you need to store.